I was a god gamer, so I took the powdered snow and the leather boots and all the items I needed and started parkouring my way across the wall with the powdered snow. I would jump up, grab the snow and place it under me before I fell in. Then I realized I could just make this final jump, so it wasn't actually that scary. Now I was on Grox's side, but this time I could actually explore. The first thing I did was use the weakness potion and the golden apple to cure the zombie villager. Eventually he turned back into a human and I was able to trade with him. He was offering a mending fishing pole for 1 emerald, and I just happened to have 1 emerald, so it seemed like this is what I was supposed to do. I went ahead and traded him. Now I had a fishing pole. Now that that was done, I started looking around Grox's area, and that's when I realized with the powdered snow and the leather boots I could actually access this side room, so I jumped on up. Right off the bat I saw a sign that said player 1 hole. It was right in front of a really big drop down to another room. Then there was a villager with some weird trades for nothing with items that we had. Then I went to the other side of the room and saw a sign that said player 2 hole with another drop down into another room. Again, there was a weird villager with some weird trades. That's when I realized I think the villagers were telling us which items the players needed to have that were going to drop down on each side. So for now I left because I was just alone. Somehow I needed to get either Grox or Teddy into this room with me, but I still didn't have a way to free Grox, and Teddy was on the other side and only one of us could cross with the leather boots at once. For a while I was really stumped how I was supposed to get either one of them free from their situation, but eventually I figured out with my items there was a way to do it. Pause if you want to figure it out on your own. I started building up all the way to the top of the room. See, there was no way I could save Grox, but by getting this height I could actually fishing rod Teddy, and then all Teddy had to do was run and jump over the lava, and by pulling him at the exact right moment I was able to fling him all the way to my side of the room to safety. I had successfully gotten Teddy on the same side as me, which means we could now both explore this room if I threw him down the leather boots, but it means we sadly had to leave Grox a second time.
Nah, you're leaving me again?
So we went back into the room with the weird villagers, but this time I had a second player with me. So me and Teddy double checked the trades on the player 2 and player 1 villagers to make sure we knew exactly what we needed. We started passing some items around so we each had what the villagers said we needed, and then we went ahead and both dropped down into our rooms. I went ahead and dropped down into my room first. I could tell from the top that the fall wasn't enough to kill me. When I entered the room there was a ton going on to look at. First I saw there was a villager in the wall that was willing to sell some of my items for food. Then I saw there was a composter in the corner and a crafting table in the wall. There was some lava blocking my path and also this weird tunnel which looked like it was supposed to be where I placed the warp fungus. Meanwhile, Teddy hit a crazy clutch on his side. Then he started exploring and found a wooden pickaxe. Then he got to the end of his room and there was nothing. There was just a weird little tunnel that he couldn't crawl through because he didn't have any way to activate crawl. But while he was standing there, I started to realize that where he was directly above where I was supposed to put the warp fungus. And warp fungus can grow through bedrock. This gave me an idea. If I could grow the tree on top of Teddy's head, it would force him into a crouch, allowing him to crawl through the tunnel. But to do that, I was going to need bone meal, and I didn't have any. But I could trade with the villager to get vegetables to try to fill up the composter. The only problem is you would have to fill it up 7 times to get 1 bone meal, and I only had enough stuff to trade for 3 different pieces of food. That wasn't enough, but I eventually realized there was something I could do. I started trading with the villager. I traded my sign for a piece of wheat and my boots for cocoa beans. This gave me enough EXP for my mending fishing rod to heal itself, which then allowed me to trade that for another piece of wheat. Maybe you can see where this is going. I took all 3 of the ingredients and crafted cookies. This gave me 8 cookies, and cookies are actually one of the best things you can use in a composter. They have the highest odds. All 8 of them perfectly filled up the composter and gave me the bone meal I needed. I walked over to the warp fungus and told Teddy it was time. Teddy went ahead and put the powdered snow at his feet so that the block would only spawn in at his head. I went ahead and bone mealed the tree, putting a block right at Teddy's head, forcing him into crawl. He picked up the powdered snow and he now could see the next area we needed to go into. And there was a lot going on. But before Teddy dropped into it, he went back and picked up the wood because that was definitely going to be needed. This room had a lot going on. Right off the bat, Teddy found a sign that said testing chamber. It was a room with an evoker and a gray sheep inside. Then he found an ender chest with a sign that said finish portal to escape. When he opened the ender chest, he got a boat and a blue dye. After Teddy left the ender chest, he saw what the sign was talking about. There was a half-finished nether portal at the bottom of a little drop, but for now we didn't have what we needed to go down there. Teddy started looking around some more and he saw the lava that was connected to my room. That's when he had a good idea. He went ahead and placed down the boat and told me to try to get into it. The range that you can right click into a boat is actually not that far, so at first I didn't think this was going to work, but after spam clicking I eventually just got the right angle and went right into the boat, teleporting to Teddy's room. We were now back together again. I went ahead, collected the boat, and started thinking, We actually knew how to get the blocks to finish the portal, but we had no idea how we were supposed to light it. That's until I opened the ender chest to see what items I had in there. I had 2 red wool and 3 crimson planks. I was 1 red wool away from being able to make a bed, and if we could get a bed, we could light the portal. But where was I going to get the final red wool? Well, that's what this testing chamber is for. Evokers have a weird feature where if they're standing next to a blue sheep, they cast a spell to turn it red, and we had some blue dye. But before that, I went ahead and collected all the stuff we were going to need to light the portal. We needed both signs, and then Teddy mined the ender chest with a wooden pickaxe. If you didn't know, that actually gives you the 8 obsidian that was used to craft the ender chest. All we need now is 1 more piece of red wool, and we would have everything we needed to light the nether portal and escape. I gave Teddy all my items, and he gave me the blue dye. I had to go in there and dye the sheep and then get the red wool. But the problem is the evoker might try to attack and kill me, but we had a trick up our sleeve. We had the invisibility arrow from the start of the prison. When Teddy shoots me with this, I'll have 1 minute of invisibility, meaning as long as I don't get right next to the evoker, he won't aggro me, but if I get too close, he still can, even while I'm invisible. Right off the bat, I went to the far corner and I was able to access the sheep without the evoker getting angry. When I did that, he cast his spell and turned the blue sheep red. This has to be one of the weirdest interactions in all of Minecraft. But after that, the sheep hid behind the evoker so I couldn't get to him, but then the evoker moved. I really quickly jumped the sheep and killed him as fast as I possibly could. I grabbed the red wool and ran out of the room, accidentally misplacing it, but it didn't matter. I escaped without the evoker attacking me. Now we had everything we needed to light the portal. Some of you might be confused how we're going to light the portal with a bed, but I'll explain it. First, I used Teddy's wood to make a crafting table. Then we used the crafting table to make the bed. At this point, all we had to do was go down there and finish the portal and put some blocks inside of it and blow up the bed. By blowing up the blocks inside the portal, there's a chance they would leave behind fire. There was only one problem with this whole situation. Whichever one of us is down there to right click the bed to make it explode might die in the process, so I did the right thing. I went behind Teddy and knocked him down so that I could survive. Once he was down there, Teddy basically had no options left. I threw him down all the blocks he was going to need and I wished him good luck. Teddy went ahead and started fixing up the portal with all the obsidian. Then he went ahead and placed both signs, the composter, the crafting table, and the powdered snow. All that was left was for Teddy to activate the bed. He went ahead and crouched by the edge to try to make sure that he could avoid the blast as much as possible, but when he did it, he died instantly. But that didn't matter because now I had an exit and could escape the prison. That's right guys, Siwa is undefeated, the chest prison has been beaten. As I was escaping though, I had this weird feeling that I couldn't shake that I'd forgotten something.
Nah, I know they're coming back for me.